Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my
Ah,
word.
this is what you get when you have people who don't know what they're doing with a new app.
Yeah, very much so. I when you when you first started it, it was fine, and then all of a sudden I was talking to some random person, and they're like asking me questions. I'm going, who's this? I
Well,
don't
here's
know.
the thing.
Stranger danger.
Yeah, you're not supposed to talk to people you don't know. Actually, I guess that's the whole point of the stereo app is to keep these live conversations going. So what they do when I was looking, because I was trying to see if you could have three people on at a time, so that
Right.
you and I wouldn't have to share headphones and speak into the same microphone when we have somebody else co-host with us. And I couldn't find anything that said that, but I saw that it would say you can go in and join people, and then they'll kick you off to another conversation if you want. And I'm like, and it could be somebody you don't know or do know. And I'm like, well, why would I want to get popped around to all these different? With my luck, I'd be in the bondage and S&M
Oh my
call line
God.
and be
Yeah,
like,
this guy was like, so what do you want to chat about? What do you want to chat about? I'm like, you're not who I'm supposed to be talking with. I don't know.
well, I was talking about shadow people, but
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't sure when I saw him pop up. I thought, well, now's a good time to test this out, and so I didn't realize that it was going to give you the boot. And then we were trying to figure out how do we get her back on again. So I figured it out. I'm very proud of my
Right.
nearly 50-year-old brain for figuring out that little tech thing.
Great.
But you didn't
Well,
actually get to hear. You didn't get to hear what Mark said, so you have to listen to the
I didn't
playback
hear
later.
anything. Yeah,
But
definitely.
he made some really good points. He was talking about some stuff that he's experienced. And one of the things that I've heard a lot about shadow people is there's something that people see out of the corner of their eyes a lot of the time. And I'm wondering if that's why they kind of show up as shadow people sometimes, is because you can't make out a full visual out of the corner of your eye.
Yeah, possibly. Possibly. I definitely had like a frontal, like face to face experience. That's the only shadow person I ever had any experience with, really.
Before we get into talking about your experiences and my experiences with them, what are you drinking?
I'm still nursing my golden monkey that I opened about 2 hours ago.
You're getting the full flavor on that one.
I sure am.
I picked up a new brew this afternoon, and it's out of a brewery that we both know very well, Cigar City Brewing, which is out of, they say Tampa, Florida, but we both know that it's actually Ybor City. That was the actual Cigar City. And
Indeed, it is.
you and I have had the pleasure of doing a ghost tour there.
We have with a couple of our listeners too.
Yeah, and we actually got to go inside of the Cuban Club and do a little bit of investigating, and we did an episode on it. I don't recall what that number is, but anyway, the name of this beer is called Fancy Papers, and it's a
And it's
hazy India pale ale.
and it's so pretty. I love the can.
It is really pretty. It looks like fancy paper, just like it says, and it has
Oh,
Strata and Idaho 7 hops.
nice.
It has notes of mango and tangerine, which I absolutely love.
Well, and mine, I'm sure that everybody is familiar with Golden Monkey Victory, Golden Monkey Belgian style triple ale, with added spice. And I'm like not a banana fan, so it doesn't, for me personally, it doesn't have a really strong banana scent or flavor to it, but it has cloves and other orange and spice flavors to it. So I really enjoy it.
I know you
And
do. I'm
again,
I'm not as crazy about that one.
I know you're not. We have our personal favorites.
For those of you who are listening in, you can join in on the conversation whenever you want. There's that little microphone below our avatars there. You just hold that down and talk into it, and it will record whatever you want to tell us. And once you release it, it will send it through to us. We want to know, have you seen a shadow person? And even if you haven't, what do you think a shadow person is? Kelly, what would you say if somebody was to corner you and say, "What is a shadow person?" What would your answer be?
Well, really quickly before I get to that, I do see on my screen. Now, granted, we started everything off way differently than before. But on the bottom of my page, I have a telephone icon with a little number one lit up in orange. So I don't know if that is a
No,
message. It doesn't look the same as
uh,
it did before. So,
no, I'm thinking that that's someone who wants to join live, which will give one of us the boot again. So don't hit
okay.
it.
It might be that random guy that I got booted off to talking to before.
Well,
Who knows?
I know at the same time that Mark was dialing in, somebody else was too. So that might be the person who was
Okay.
dialing in also.
More is to be revealed in regards to how to use this app. We need
Exactly.
to,
We're learning as we go.
we're learning. Yeah, we're learning through trial by error. Anyway, so personally, I only had heard about shadow people, or shadow entities, whatever you have your personal preference in terms of the name. I always figured it would be like a dark figure that just kind of swiped by my peripheral vision, basically. Um, for my personal experience, I mean, I should say that there were a couple of different instances prior to, but really for me to say, what I experienced, it was like a paper cutout almost, but not completely just 1D, one dimensional. Um, it was
Well,
somebody walking.
describe the whole thing for people. Like, we were in a room that there was absolutely no light. We were down in a wine cellar. It was pitch black. You could not see your hand in front of your face. And a lot of shadow figures are described as being blacker than black. So it's very interesting that in this environment, you were able to make out a shadow figure.
Yeah, and so you're much better at that than I am. But yes, we were down essentially in a wine cellar, and there was no ambient light, no lights from any devices. It was completely pitch black. Could not see anything, and I all of a sudden saw this figure basically walking past me from left to right. I was following them with my eyes, with my face, turning my head, watching them go by. They turned around, came back, kind of bent down because I was sitting in a chair, and looked at me, and I could see it was really bizarre because there was no like glow around the figure. It was just so much darker than what I was already visually seeing. And I could see like the outline from where the eyes and mouth and so forth was supposed to be. So it was lighter where the facial features were supposed to be, but the whole entire body was just blacker than black.
So for you, you felt like that was a human spirit.
It did, yes, absolutely. And I did not feel any malevolence, nothing. It was really incredible. And I was actually speaking to him, and it did appear as a male form. And then it's like he came down and like kind of looked face to face with me, and then like stood up and continued on to the right.
Awesome. Well, we have a couple messages. Let's go with the first one here.
Hey, you two. I've seen a shadow. I've seen shadow people a few times actually. Like, long story short, my house growing up has like a female spirit in it, and she kind of takes multiple forms. But one time I actually saw her about 2 years ago when I went to visit to my parents' house, and I haven't been there in like a year or so. And this is the only place really I've ever had any sort of ghostly sightings or any sort of experiences is that house. And I was home alone, and I was doing the dishes, and there's a window right in front of the sink. And if you look back, it shows like the hallway and a lot of other things within the house. And I look, and all of a sudden there's an apparition of a shadow person, of a female figure, but obviously she's completely blacked out. You can't make out any features. And she's just standing at the end of the hallway, kind of what I assume looking in my direction. And it was interesting.
That's really cool because typically, from what I've read and heard from other people, it's typically a male type of figure. People usually either assume it's male or they get that male feeling or vibe from it. I would be curious as to how he was able to determine it was a female, if it was just that was the spirit that he was accustomed to, because he said that she would appear or come to him in multiple forms. How he knew that was a female or that was her.
You're on the same wavelength as me, because I was going to ask the same thing. What about this shadow figure made you think that this was female? Was it an energy that she was giving off? Did she appear to have more of a womanly form to her? But how interesting. This is why I think sometimes when we're seeing a shadow person, it is an entity that just isn't able to manifest completely. Or what you didn't hear, Mark had said that sometimes he thinks that they want to hide, so they won't manifest completely. And that's why they only appear like a shadow.
Yeah, it could be.
Get our next message here.
And it's so weird that like most like encounters of shadow people that I've heard of is like you always see them in the dark. And that's like what happened with mine. And like the hallway that this apparition was standing in was pretty dark, but the darkness of the shadow of the person itself was just so intense. That's why I could make out the features, and I knew it was a female figure just because of obviously just the way the female body is compared to a male's body. It's just it was unmistakably a young woman, and every single thing that I've seen over the years, like ghost-wise, has been either a little girl or woman. So it's interesting. Anyways, I love this show, and I'm so happy to see you guys on here. I've been following the podcast for many years, and it's funny, I was actually searching through the ghost hashtag here on Stereo, because I do all my shows on ghost stuff too, and I found you guys, and I was like, yes, this is awesome, so keep it up.
Well, I want to thank you for following us too, because I think it was yesterday you were hosting a Stereo, and I popped in there for a little bit because I was like, oh, he's our people.
Yes, thank you so much.
I find it interesting that he says he's had a lot of these, like a little girl apparition, or like you've got this female spirit that he's had appear to him in multiple forms. Seems like he draws a lot of female energy towards him. And so that's really cool to hear that. I like that he makes the point that a lot of the times when you see these shadow figures, it is when you are in the dark. I remember I had a paranormal investigator friend. Some people may recognize her name. She's been on a ton of the different paranormal TV shows that you see on TV as I don't know, I guess you could call her a paranormal expert. I don't know that there's really any experts in it, but her name is Linda Zimmerman. And she shared a photo with me several years ago that she took when she was doing an investigation in a private residence. And I've never seen a picture like it, but there was clearly a big dark something that was standing in front of a window in a room at the front of the house, and the curtains were drawn, but you could totally see this shape outline of what would be a human being standing there as if it was just a silhouette. It was one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. And when you think that there's no lights on in this house, it was night, and yet you could still make out this shadow figure on a camera in a picture that she had taken. It was really weird.
Right. That is really weird. And, I guess maybe the time will come to pass where it's creepy to me, which is ironic because my first experience, like one of my first real legit experiences, was with that shadow figure. But I guess it was just such a positive environment. It doesn't creep me out. So maybe one day, but yeah, I don't really know what to expect of any of it. When I think I told you, Diane, about, in my previous home, I would get, and it was more of a residual, but I would see like a black mass, go around the corner of the base of the stairs and up the stairs, but it was always the same movement. So it was just like over and over. And I felt like it was probably a residual haunting. And actually it was attached, I believe, to a very, very, very old oil painting that my dad was given. Well, actually, his relatives were given years and years ago, great-great-grandfather or great-great-great-grandfather, as payment for services rendered, essentially. And I didn't connect that it was possibly attached to that until that painting was removed from the home, and then all of a sudden it went away. It was never there again. So who knows whether it's residual attached to that or just a residual for the home. But when that painting left, it discontinued and never came back again.
Interesting too, because Mark had said that he felt like some of the shadow figures that they've dealt with in their house were attached to things that they were bringing into the house. Like his wife would go shopping or something and bring something back, and he would have to tell whatever it was, "You're not welcome here. You need to get lost." So it does seem like there is a possibility that shadow figures can be attached to objects, which also makes me wonder if maybe that's why they can't manifest completely, because they're part of that object. I know we're going to read a story on our upcoming podcast about one of our listeners who has a rocking chair that clearly has an attachment to it, and you never see anything in it, but you see the rocking chair moving all the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and at the time when I was experiencing that on a regular basis, I never thought to say, because in my head, I would catch it, I would see it, and I was just thinking, well, maybe it's something residual. It wasn't until the painting was out of the house that I thought, well, it's gone now. It was, a few months later, and I was realizing I haven't seen it in quite a while. I didn't think at the time to say, okay, you're not welcome here. You need to leave or what have you.
Sure. All right. We got another message.
Oh, better turn my sink off first. I'm doing dishes. I could tell she was female, like I said in the previous message, just by like her figure. And I've seen, before that, I've seen very similar apparitions of a woman's figure, and it was kind of the same height as the ones I've always seen. And it was just, especially, it was the energy that gave it away. So every single time I go to the house and I like see these things, there's always a certain energy that she brings. And I felt that. Like as soon as I saw this apparition, I knew it was her. But yeah, hopefully that clears it up a bit.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that clears it up. And I like that he pointed out that it was an energy kind of feeling about it. Because the other thing that we hear a lot about shadow people, and you pointed this out with your experiences, you always hear, oh, they're evil, they're dark, you don't want to mess with them. And so it's nice to hear him saying it was giving him kind of a feminine energy, and he clearly didn't sound like he was afraid of whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. And in regards to energies in general, I think oftentimes, even if we don't necessarily see something where we can identify a figure, you can get a feel for who or what it is. I mean, typically for myself, I usually feel more male or female.
You know, the other thing that I've heard is a theory about what these shadow people can be is sometimes people can astral project themselves. So it's like their spirits leave their bodies and travel through dimensions or whatever and can be in a place. And I've heard some people theorize that maybe a shadow figure is somebody who is astral projected. So you're kind of seeing an essence of their spirit, but because they're still alive, you're not going to get a full-on apparition.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely possible. Sorry, the dog's shaking. In response to
maybe she saw a shadow figure.
The dogs are playing. In regards to my personal, like my big one-on-one experience, I definitely feel like it was the homeowner, just based on several different things. But in general, I could definitely, think that that's a possibility when people are being caught like out of the corner of their eye, when the shadow people are, you don't really have a definitive interaction. I can definitely imagine that that's something that's possible. The thing that bothers me the most, I think, is when people talk about them having glowing red eyes. I've yet to experience that, and I don't know that I want to experience that.
That's a great thing to point out, because I have heard that several times too. One of my friends named Dan, he does the Lift podcast. And I remember the story that he told me about the only apparition that he's ever seen. I think he was a kid at the time, and he was upstairs sleeping, and he got out of bed and came downstairs. I don't know if he needed a drink of water or something, but as he came down the stairs, that's what he saw, a shadow figure with these glowing red eyes. And it just, I mean, obviously it unsettled him. He was younger, and he's never forgotten it.
Yeah, I think if that would have been my first experience, I would have much different feelings about shadow people or entities.
Well, what I love about your experience is that even though it was dark down there and that you could kind of see it almost like it had a luminescence around it, his facial features had kind of a luminescence to him too. Like you could almost make out where the eyes and the nose and mouth would be.
Well, and that's why I referenced it to that Flat Stanley kids book, because it was almost like when he passed by me, it was a little bit more corporal, as in it wasn't like a paper figure walking past me. But when he turned around and bent down a little bit and looked at me, I could see, the outline of where his eyes and mouth should be, if that makes sense. Sure. So for that portion, I called him a Flat Stanley, because that portion only was a little bit more one-dimensional, I guess you would say, to like outline it wasn't even, it sounds so bizarre. His eye sockets were not empty. They were lighter. And so was his mouth than his overall head and the rest of his body. So it was like I could see that I was looking right into his eyes, essentially. But you would imagine that his eyes would be even darker, like hallowed or something, darker and deeper and pits or something. But they were actually lighter.
All right, we got another message.
Wow, I just finally found this conversation we're in.
And that was Mark again. Thanks for being our guinea pig, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
We had somebody who thought that... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say sorry that I wasn't able to join in the first portion, and thank you for joining in.
Tammy, one of our listeners, said that she had seen a shadow person, and she'd always believed that they were residual in nature, and she'd wondered if the reason why they become more shadow-like is because they're kind of fading away. So it's like this tape that's played itself over so many times that it kind of gets worn out, just like for those of you who are younger, cassette tapes when we were younger. Or video cassettes.
Let's go all the way back to 8-track, baby.
When you played them a little too much, they would start to get kind of warbled or faded, or sometimes they would even break. The tape would break, and I remember trying to splice it together and taping it with Scotch tape.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, there's different varieties of shadow people, supposedly. There's these transient shadow people, and they're less interested in what we're doing and seem to have their own agenda. So it's kind of like they're passing through. They kind of look over and go, oh, there's a couple people here, whatever. I'm, busy going to do such and such. And so they'll go from one place to another and just ignore who else is around them.
Well, and I'm wondering if perhaps that could be like that situation where you guys were talking about astro projecting or, something along those lines, or, time jumpers. I mean, I don't know. Who really knows, honestly? But yeah, there's that. There's also like the lurking shadow people, which kind of, I guess, is what we were already talking about. It's, they're just hanging around and you kind of see them out of the corner of your eye. They're not necessarily super defined, but they have that classic human shape essentially, or with their hat and their coat. But it's when you have a feeling for male or female, I always kind of wonder, female shape, but what does that look like? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just everybody's individual experience.
I think this variety, the lurking shadow person, is what I've seen in the past. I'm going to bring on this message real quick, and then I'll talk about the shadow people that I think I may have seen in my experiences.
I was just having a thought with the shadow people and everything. I wonder if there's no steadfast rule to the way that they look, that people see so many different things, like yourself, Kelly, with the lighter colour eyes, or me with the one that looked like a monk. I wonder if there's a difference in every single one depending on the personality of the person when they were either alive or near the structure that they passed in.
I think that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm telling you, if I see a shadow monk, that's kind of creepy.
I still don't know that I'd be creeped out. I'd have to have like a really negative experience, I think, to be affected that way. I mean, prior to seeing one, I always thought, oh my gosh, that's so scary. I don't want to ever see one. And then I was like face to face, and I just was amazed. I was just amazed.
That's true. The place that I have seen shadow people, most people who have seen these same shadow people, and there's a lot of them out there, are going to feel completely different than how you feel. And this is at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. There are different levels to the sanatorium. There's different experiences on each of these levels, and it is the 4th level that is known as the shadow people level. And part of it is because they kind of enhance that to be that way when you're at the location, because there's no lighting on this floor at all. You stand in the center area. There's like the central place, and then it has these 2 halls that branch off of it. And at the end, I think I don't know if they have some kind of lights down there, or if it's hard for me to know because, of course, the night that I was there, it was a full moon, which just made it amazing. And I got some great pictures of the gargoyles up on the top of the building with the moonlight behind them. So I don't know if this was like moonlight that was coming through, but there was a little bit of ambient light at each of the ends of the hallways. And one of our friends, Matthew, volunteered to walk down to the end of the one hallway. And our tour guide said, stick your arms out to your sides and just walk down the hallway. So you'd walk him going down there. And eventually he himself became a shadow because you couldn't really make him out. And you could just kind of see it in the ambient light. And as you kept peering down that hallway, to me, it looked like there were these shadows that would kind of poke out of doorways. Like all of a sudden you would see this black form that would kind of poke out and then kind of go back. And it would move enough that you'd be like, I think there's something there. It's not just dark. It's like the darkness moved. But it was really hard for me to think to myself, yeah, I'm definitely seeing a shadow person, because since it's dark, everybody who's listening here, I'm sure you've woken up in the middle of the night, your room is dark, and your eyes kind of play tricks on you because they're trying to focus on something. And that's kind of how I felt on that floor. It's like, are my eyes trying to focus? And so I think I'm seeing something. Because you know how when you wake up in the middle of the night, Kelly, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like the static that you see on TV. You'll kind of see that in the air around you. And you're trying to make out objects. I don't know. Has that ever happened to you?
No, maybe you had a beer? I don't know.
No, I was so cold sober that night. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it just felt like my eyes were trying to make sense of what they were seeing. And so part of me was like, am I really seeing a shadow figure? But what kind of convinced me that I is that I was hanging out with a guy that they were calling the caboose. And so he worked for Waverly Hills. He wasn't our actual tour guide, but he was bringing up the rear just to make sure we didn't lose anybody or,
Yeah.
nobody would wander off and do their own thing. And so I was standing next to him and he would say like, oh, I just see something out of this door right here, poke out, and it's like towards the bottom. And I was like, huh, yeah, I saw something that looked like that too. And then he'd be like, in this door over here, it kind of looks like there's something poking out towards the top of the doorway. And I'd be like, yeah, I saw that too. So that's what kind of made me start going, okay, maybe it's not my eyes playing tricks on me and I am seeing shadow figures. And I have to say, I wasn't scared, but it was kind of weird and creepy to me because I didn't know what I was seeing and why there were so many of them.
Right. And I remember you discussing it before, and it was a situation where multiple people were reacting and experiencing and seeing and later on hearing, but not with the shadow people, but having the same exact experience. And when you have a group of people that are all, having the same thing, it wasn't a matter of like one person feeding thoughts into everyone else. So I wasn't meaning to make fun of you or tease or whatever about getting up in the middle of the night, but I've had that like with rubbing my eyes or something like that. I've also had lights play with my eyes in different situations, but I know what you're saying in terms of, because as a skeptic or open-minded skeptic, we are always looking for other explanations, essentially. Anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, scientific hard fact, but just what else? There's probably other things going on here. Let's take a step back and really take a different look at everything.
Yeah, I mean, you and I describe ourselves as open-minded skeptics. So my initial thinking whenever anything happens that I can't explain or that would be considered weird, I immediately try to explain it away. I mean, what could be causing that to happen? So, of course, when I'm sitting on this 4th floor and I'm seeing these things, my initial thought is, oh, I'm just seeing something. And Matthew had walked down there and these things are poking out around him, which also kind of gave us a kind of, something to focus your visual on.
Sure.
And so that's the other thing that made me think, okay, I'm seeing him normal. I mean, it wasn't like he was looking kind of weird to me. And so I'm like, it's weird that I'm seeing him perfectly fine, but then I'm seeing these other shadow figures that seem like they're just kind of coming out of nowhere. So why would all of a sudden my eyes be trying to, all of a sudden play tricks on me with something coming out of a doorway, but I'm seeing Matthew perfectly fine as he's going down there. Now, of course, as he's walking down and then he comes back later on when the tour guide tells him to return, he didn't see anything. He didn't feel anything. So that also makes you go, well, if something was poking out of the door, would he have seen it? Would he have noticed it? Would it have been maybe sometimes people say a ghost is like a cold spot? Would he have felt something that was colder? Was he too close to it? But it almost felt like when you were watching them that they were poking their heads out and looking at him. Like, what is that coming down the hallway?
Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows ultimately? But I do like it when there's multiple people having the same experience. And I do know, you had that audio experience with everyone in the group. So in regards to shadow people and the experience there at Waverly, obviously I wasn't there myself, but I would lend a little bit more credence, or I guess ultimately I'd want to go see it for myself.
And I have to say, a lot of people who were on that floor, and I have a feeling you wouldn't feel this way because you have yet to feel weird or bad in any place. A lot of people who were with us, and we were broken into different groups because we were doing a live show in Louisville. So we had a lot of people who wanted to go to Waverly with us. So we'd broken up into 2 groups. And I know in another group, well, we were in 2 different groups at that time. And then we had another group that went later on in the evening. And I know when I talked to people who were in those other groups when they were on that fourth floor, there were quite a few people that said that they didn't feel very good on that floor. There were some people who needed to get off the floor because they were starting to feel nauseous, or after they got off that floor, they felt nauseous. I knew a couple other people that were scared. We know somebody who, wouldn't even open her eyes. She felt so bad on that floor. She wouldn't even open her eyes or look up. She just buried her head into her partner's shoulder and was just saying the Lord's Prayer the whole time.
Right, right. And, it's not like I've never felt bad or oppressed. I've definitely, as you know, I've had the heaviness on myself, on my chest. I felt nauseous and stuff like that. But I've never felt fearful. I guess that's the difference. I've not felt great. I've not felt comfortable in certain locations, but I've never felt fearful.
Well, and that's why I'm so mad at COVID, because if we hadn't had COVID last year, we were going to be investigating at Waverly Hills. And so you would have gotten to go there.
And is it
Go ahead.
I have to interject because as soon as you were talking about Matthew walking down the hallway, I'm like, is it so wrong that I totally picture in my mind him skipping down the hallway? Like, I don't know why, but he is such a funny guy, and just like, I haven't even met him in person, but he can be serious, but I also feel like I could just picture him, from what I've met of him. I just have this overall feeling of him like skipping down the hall and like holding his arms out, like, greeting whatever's there.
I have to tell you, he did not skip down that hallway, but he was such a good sport. He was our volunteer for everything, because they had a refrigeration system too, because they had food and everything there. But they also said that there were children's spirits that would hang out in there. And they said, do we have any volunteers to get shut up in this refrigerator? And there's Matthew with his hand up. So he was our guinea pig all night.
I'm not surprised. I could just see him just being like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. All right. We got a couple messages here.
Hey, history goes bump. Why you got pretty eyes? Got me acting brazy.
Well, goodness gracious. I'm glad I added the eyelashes. All right, we got another one.
Hi, Kelly. I totally love what you said about not feeling fearful in those situations, because I actually feel the exact same way. I've had a couple encounters with ghosts or spirits or something, very mild. Just mostly just like things being in, or doors opening when they're not supposed to be opening, and then feeling a presence, and just like random, just like mirages and whatnot. But also I also have never felt afraid of it. I think in theory the idea is scarier than it is scarier than the thing actually happening. But yes, I'm loving the show so far, you guys.
Thank you. And yeah, that's exactly it. In terms of some investigations that we've done, the buildup of anticipation and, oh my goodness, what everybody says about this location and things of that nature can get you a little bit on edge. But any experience I've had now, when I got touched at the Squirrel Cage jail by a supposed murderer, that disconcerted me a little bit initially. But when I look back on it now, it bothers me much less. And I'm anxious to go back there and investigate more.
Oh, I know we both are. That place, we had so many different interactions.
Yes.
And I was surprised, when you think about places that you would be more likely to see shadow figures, a jail is a place that, I'd be like, no doubt about it. I can't remember. I think there was an episode of Ghost Hunters. I'm trying to think of what jail they were at. I can't off the top of my head, but I can envision the picture that they showed. And they were down on one of the lower levels. And at the end of this hallway, and it was stepping out of a doorway, kind of like how I saw the shadow figures at Waverly Hills, you could see
leaning
this figure of what looked like a man. Yeah, kind of stepping out of this doorway. And it was clearly a shadow figure because you couldn't make out anything else about it. It was just black.
It's just incredible how you always hear the blacker than black, but until you see it in person, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. And then when you see it, it's like, that's the best description, really.
Absolutely.
I actually have a question for you guys. So I just recently got my COVID vaccine, so I am actually going to be going down to Yuma, Arizona next month and visiting the Yuma Territorial Prison. And I was just wondering if either of you guys have ever visited there, and if so, what tips do you have? What should I be on the lookout for? What should I avoid? What's just the best way to have the best experience? And if not, what are some things you've heard about the Yuma Territorial Prison? Because I have just done some just a little bit of research, but I've always been fascinated by just ghosts of all sorts and spirits and just all these really old historical places that are just kind of popping with paranormal stuff. So yeah, just wondering if you have been and if you have any tips for me.
I'll let
Kelly,
you start, Diane. I haven't been there. I haven't been there, but sorry. I haven't been there, but I have recommendations for, the encounter, the experience going in there. But you start if you have history on that.
We have not done the Yuma Territorial Prison, so I'm adding it to our list. And if you have some experiences there, we'd love to hear about it. I'm very jealous that you're going to be there. For me, the number one thing that I would say is after you get done there, the one thing Kelly and I are always religious about is when we get in the vehicle, we always say, and we say it out loud, if there is anything that joined us during this investigation, I don't know if you're doing an investigation or just a tour, but irregardless, if anything joined us inside, you are not welcome to come home with us. You have to stay here. And so we've always been really good about that.
Yep, absolutely. And then going in, if you are investigating and you have the ability to do that, just be really respectful. One thing, we get so many great responses, but we're not ones to go in and say, did you die? How'd you die? Do you know you're dead? That type of thing. We're just very conversational and just trying to learn more about their story.
Yeah, the thing that's hard about prisons is that you're going into a situation where you might be talking to some guards, but generally speaking, you're going to be interacting with prisoners. And obviously there are some who were in there, especially back in the day, that were not guilty. So they're not going to be as bad, but you will have some, like Kelly's had some interactions when we've been in prisons that have not been fun, quote unquote fun. So the main thing is just to make sure that you're respectful when you go in, but also if you were listening earlier, Mark was talking about the things that he does with shadow people and stuff. Just be very firm about what your boundaries are. So it's like, I'm willing to communicate with you and be respectful to you if you're going to be respectful to me. And like Kelly said, we try not to bring up the dead thing because number one, we don't know, do they know they're dead? So if you're like telling them that they're dead or asking them about being dead, they either might be confused, like, what are you talking about? Or it might be upsetting to them. So we just generally treat them like they're a person that's there just talking to us day to day.
Yeah, exactly. And being firm is important also, but you don't have to be aggressive in that. You're just firm, and that, I think that definitely helps.
And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if you're doing a tour or an investigation, but either way, if you have a way to take a little miniature recorder in with you, I always have a recorder on me no matter what. Whether I'm on a ghost tour or we're doing an investigation, I believe the recorder is the best piece of equipment you can have.
Definitely.
All right, we got some more messages here.
A tip, Diane, my offer is to wear shorts. And also, Arena and I would love to join you guys if you do go back to the squirrel cage jail.
Yes. So that was Jessica and Arena, and when we went to Squirrel Cage, well, they had been there when it was wintertime and it was really, really cold. When we did our inaugural investigation with our History Goes Bump investigative group, it was very, very warm.
Yes, it was hotter than Hades in that jail.
I think, Diane, you actually said during the podcast that covered it, I should have worn my shorts.
Yeah, because what happened is we went to dinner and I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and then I was like, I need to go back to the hotel room and change into jeans because I just know I'm going to get cold. Because anybody who knows me from our podcast, History Goes Cold, I'm always cold and I hate being cold. Well, I did not have that problem that evening.
It was a little toasty.
All right, some more messages.
Hey, so I'm a British guy, right? You know, living in England and there. And I'll admit, I've had my share of encounters with the paranormal. I've seen things out of the corner of my eye that shouldn't be there. I've heard noises in the night. I've heard running down the halls. And I'll admit, I've even been pushed down by something at one stage. I never know what.
Woo.
Could this be a shadow person, maybe? Or maybe like a poltergeist of some kind? If so, I could really, really use the assistance.
Hearing something running down the hall and then getting pushed. Yeah, that's not a lot of fun. It could be a shadow figure because, it's something that hasn't manifested. You're not able to see it. And the way that I deal with those kinds of things, or how I would deal with that, again, is just, you have authority. Here's the thing. We're corporal. We have bodies. Yep. They don't. And so it's like the rules are on our side because we have bodies. We belong here. This is our domain. They're in another domain. And so that's the main thing. I think that's why Kelly and I, when we go into places, we're not really afraid because we feel like, even though we can't see you, we have the upper hand because we're human, we're real right now. And so it's just being firm. If something was to push you, you just tell them, don't push me anymore.
And if they're in an immediate area where you're at on a regular basis, so say that was happening in your hallway or wherever it is, if it's something that is constantly bothering you, you can tell it that, you either need to leave me alone, not interrupt my day, not touch me, not do anything. I don't want to see any signs of you. If we can coexist peacefully, great. Otherwise, you need to go. And you can repeat that as many times as you need, but typically that's something that works.
And something that we have found that has actually worked for us when we went to the old Charleston jail, inadvertently, is if you can get a hold yes. of some black tourmaline. It is a stone. If you go to a rock shop, I'm sure you guys have them over there in Europe too. We have rock shops here in America. And you get some black tourmaline. That's always something good to have either on your person or to keep in your house. I have some here in the studio. We'll take it with us when we go on a ghost hunt and at least keep it in the car. People who know our story about the old Charleston jail know that we actually had it in our bag. But it does seem to have a protective quality to it. Black tourmaline is good at repelling negative energy. So if there's something that means you some harm, it will give you a bit of protection. Wow, we've got all kinds of messages here, Kelly. Here we go.
Probably one of the biggest things I reckon is being respectful and realizing there was a movie that was brought out called no, I can't remember the name of it.
That's all All right, Mark. And I'm sure he's going to pop back in and tell us, but I definitely, my biggest thing is always that respect. But then again, like we were saying, being firm.
Yes. Respectful but firm.
Yep.
Sorry I'm late to the party. I was video chatting with my baby niece.
Aw.
Julia,
So
you're
sweet.
welcome anytime.
So sweet.
Okay. There was a movie called
Remember.
The Others that was brought out by M. Night Shyamalan, whatever his name is. I think what he brought out in that movie was quite good for this situation. If you're going to a place, just think that person or the spirits, the residual spirits, may not know that they're dead. They may not know that anything's going on, and they may think that you're the intruders. So the more respectful you are, the better the result that you're going to get, I think.
Absolutely.
I love that movie. How about you, Kelly?
I do too. And I mean, absolutely all day long. And that's the thing. That's why we don't bring that up. I mean, we went to Villisca Axe Murder House and we were having interactions. And that was the one thing that we started discussing. And this was like when we were new on doing actual investigations. And we had the conversation prior to, we're not going to be asking things like, what was it like? Or do you know you're dead? Or how were you murdered? And this, that, and the other, because it's like having a conversation with a corporal person, face to face. Would you want to ask them, if they were suffering from a terrible disease, would you be asking them, how do you feel now that you're diagnosed with this and you're going to die? I mean,
yeah,
it's just that matter. Well, I mean, truly, it's just that matter of respect and empathy and just, treating them with the humanity that you would want to be treated with.
Well, I know on our next show, we're going to talk about what is a ghost. So I don't want to get so much into that now.
Okay.
But, one thing that we don't, no. I'm just saying one thing we don't understand about ghosts is like, why are they where they are, if that's what they are? Because of course, and we'll talk about this on the next show, we're not quite sure what a ghost is, but let's say that they are a human spirit and murder victim or somebody who's committed suicide, let's say, and it's almost like they're trapped in a location. I mean, how would you feel to be trapped in a location for eternity or for years and years and years? And so I don't know. It's like hitting a beehive with a stick. You just don't want to do it, because I wouldn't want to be reminded of the fact that I'm trapped in some kind of a location because of a horrible experience.
Exactly.
Oh, you're a cold baby like me, Diane. I hear you.
That's why I live in Florida. We occasionally get down into the 20s. It happens very rarely. During the winter, we do get down into the 30s. But I lived for 30 years in Colorado where we would get below zero. And, that's when you walk outside. I don't know if you know this kind of experience, Kelly, since you grew up in California, but you walk outside when it's below zero and your nose hairs freeze.
Well, I was just going to say snotsickles.
Yes, exactly.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I feel like we misled you with that.
That was Arena, I think. And no, you did not. You were just trying to take care of us. And that Diane has this this feeling about being cold where she, if it's under what, I don't know, 70 degrees, she's gonna throw on a sweatshirt.
I'm not that bad.
Okay.
If it's below 60, I'll reach for the sweatshirt if it's below 60.
No, you'll put on a sweatshirt if it's 69. But but no, Arena, you didn't mislead us. It's just, you were looking out for us.
But you know what I love about Arena and Jessica is they weren't real sure about, staying and doing investigations and stuff, but they were watching because we were doing lives on Facebook.
Yes, and they did end up jumping right in from Malvern Manor, and
Yes,
that was
they did.
fantastic. Raina was a little bit more hesitant, and I can't blame her. I was hesitant the first few times I was doing stuff too. So
I have a question. Has every single experience either of you had with shadow people or shadow-like entities, spirits, whatever you may call them, have they always been positive? Like, they don't really feel evil? Or have you ever had ones that just felt very negative, and you get that sort of negative feeling? Also, I don't know why earlier I said the only place I've had ghostly kind of encounters is my childhood home. That's mainly the place. But one time where I work, is an outpatient mental health and addictions facility. So there's a lot of, unfortunately, people who have passed through that are no longer with us anymore. And there can be some kind of dark energy there. I'm going to continue this in another message. Crap, I apologize. I'll do that in the next one, actually.
I love the crap, I apologize. Let's see if we get his... Well, let me have you get the beginning part there, the shadow people. I think you would probably say that yours has been positive.
So I've just had the main response in terms of the main shadow person that was positive, but I have had experiences where it feels like something's pushing you back on your chest, like you're not supposed to be there. But I also don't feel threatened. I usually just, I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I'm just gonna keep going. I just go through, and maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe I'll have something more intense in the future. But I always, when I'm still powering through and going past, I'm doing so with respect. And I think when I reach out with my energy and when I say things, I think that maybe that helps. I don't know. Maybe it's just in my head, but I've definitely had in different circumstances. And for that one location, for Charleston Jail, going up that one staircase, I just kept feeling an increasing pressure every time we went through that area. And then the last time we went through, I did feel very nauseous. And then once I got past there, I was fine. But overall, I didn't feel scared. I was just saying in my head, I understand maybe you don't want me here. We're just coming here in peace. We are just exploring. We're trying to see what is going on in this environment. For me, it all boils down to respect.
Yeah, and for me, all I've had are the experiences when I was at Waverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And those, to me, I wouldn't say they were positive or negative, so I don't really know. Let's see if we got some more continuation on his message here.
Okay, I can understand where you're coming from with the aspects of your argument, but this is something that I ain't never seen this shit before. I've just been chilling in my house. The next thing I know, the lights would go, what the?
I mean, I can understand it being very unsettling, especially if you're in your own home. But again, I would be taking the upper hand with it because it's your house. So
yeah, definitely.
That's
Taking the authoritative stance, essentially.
Sorry, my low battery setting on my phone. If you have a low battery setting, it automatically sends your message if you're recording. Anyways, I was going to the corner and I look, and there's a dark, fairly tall, kind of androgynous, I couldn't tell if it was male or female, kind of dark figure. And it was like the typical shadow person. It was just kind of standing, and it was quite tall, probably over 6 feet tall. It was facing towards, away from me and looking at the laundry, and it was just kind of standing there. It was kind of looming over, and it just had this sad energy to it. It just felt like it was lost, it was unsure, it was scared. And let me tell you, I did not expect seeing that, so I quickly ran, took a right, and went into the bathroom. And I asked my coworkers, I'm like, like, is there anyone that's really tall that's wearing like all black? But at the same time, I'm like, well, it can't be a person. Like it was confusing.
I like how his brain works because he's like us. He's an open-minded skeptic, so he immediately is like, okay, is there somebody working tonight that's dressed that way?
Right, and he clearly has like that sensitivity, that empath. If he's saying, you know, he didn't feel threatened, which most people would be like, oh my God, there's, you know, this huge shadow figure and I'm scared and I don't know what this is. But he got the overwhelming sense of it was sad.
Yep,
you know,
that makes me empathic.
Yes.
So I have a really fun story that I tell a lot of people, and this may take a few recordings, so I'll try and go as fast as I can. When I was a little kid, there was this ghost in our house that haunted it, and my whole family just named it Ralph. But all of us were very aware of it because weird things would happen around the house all the time. And we would just be like, stop it, Ralph, you know. And Ralph only played pranks, like little innocent pranks. It never got increasingly crazy or anything like that. A good example is we lived in a small town, and my dad would go up to the city once a month to go to Costco to get a bunch of stuff to last us the month. And he did this, and he brought in a large package of toilet paper and set it in our laundry room on the counter. So my dad goes back into the laundry room after having gone back out to the truck to get more things. When he returns to the laundry room, the only thing that's sitting on the counter is the wrapper that was the remnants of what used to be a package of toilet paper rolls. And we, you know, for weeks we found toilet paper rolls in the weirdest places, namely the chicken coop, inside the chicken coop, inside the freezer, underneath the soil in the garden. And I know that Ralph was real because I have this memory of a time that I saw him, and he winked at me. He was this guy that wore a black suit, and he had a vest and a gold watch, and he had a cane and a hat, and he had like this reddish hair, and he just winked at me and then vanished. More to come. Gets better.
I love it.
Unless they're real jerks, then that might be a different story. Treat them however they treat you, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely, you know, like we said, we've only had good experiences so far.
So, time passes by, and all of us kids move out, and and Ralph just jumps from one household to another between all of us kids. We know this because every week we have a Zoom meeting just to catch up with each other. We're a decently sized family, and we like to keep in touch and keep updated. And one of us always has some kind of example to share of how Ralph did something in their home that week. And my wife believes in Ralph just as much as my family because she's experienced things as well. But anyway, here comes the greatest part. So I have DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, otherwise known as multiple personality disorder. So I have these people in my head. They can take over my body from time to time. I have no control over it. And during the time that they're in control, I have no recollection of anything that they did.
Yeah, you couldn't survive in Minnesota. Sorry. Nope. Well, right now it's like maybe 40, but that cold snap we had last week or the week before that, negative double digits. Ugh. Yeah, I wanted to come visit you.
Yeah, negative double digits I'm not doing.
But one thing that I do have is a journal. And all of my alters, or my personalities as people would refer to them, will write in this journal of what they did and how their day went while they're in control. And one of my alters, whose name is Wyatt, talked about how, or basically shared an experience. So Ralph came and visited my family while I was, still in control of my body. And I just kind of giggled and blah, blah, blah. We dealt with Ralph, and that was that. Later on that night, apparently Wyatt switched with me, and he said that he tried to go to bed, and suddenly this figure appeared at the end of the couch that he was sleeping on. He described the figure in the journal as a man-shaped figure that was tall and shrouded in shadow, and that the only distinguishing factor was that he held a cane and that he had a hat. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with shadow people, but the Hat Man is a shadow person that shows up regularly within shadow people stories. And he said that this shadow person walked up to him and grabbed him by the throat and whispered, "Bring him back," and then threw him back against the couch and vanished. After reading that journal entry, I got chills. Did my research on shadow people, but I am convinced that the Hat Man is also Ralph.
Wow.
Cutting
So
in a little bit late, so I don't know if this question has already been asked. But would you categorize the Hat Man as a shadow person?
Oh my God. Talk about synchronicity, Kelly. Holy shit. I mean, I thought maybe Article had some more to say. And all of a sudden I go on to John, and John's talking about the Hat Man.
Well,
holy crap.
And here's the thing. Throughout all of Article's descriptions, I mean, me just happy-go-lucky, cool experience. I've got a big smile on my face. I'm like, that is so neat. No negativity, no nothing, just, playing pranks and hanging around the house, and everybody recognizes that Ralph is who he is. But then with Wyatt, the grabbing around the neck and throwing him back and saying, "Bring him back," I mean, that just gave me chills too. That I didn't like that part. And it definitely does sound like the Hat Man.
So a couple of thoughts here to go back on what he's saying. First of all, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if one of his alters took over while he was sharing his story?
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Probably a different viewpoint, I would imagine.
Yeah, what an interesting life that, you're having to keep these things in a journal so that you can document everything that's happening. First of all, what we have here with Ralph the Ghost is at first he sounds like he's just a fun little poltergeist. I mean, stealing toilet paper. And what I was interested in knowing is, when you're finding these toilet paper rolls, is the toilet paper off and so now it's just the cardboard part of it that's buried somewhere, or is it actually burying, as we found during COVID, these priceless rolls of toilet paper being buried in dirt or stuck in chicken coops or in the freezer? But that would put a whole different. That would put a whole different twist on Ralph. Exactly. If it was happening just during that time frame, I probably would have been a little ticked. What's interesting about a lot of people who have these experiences, especially when it's in their own home, is it seems like they start off as these poltergeist experiences, and then they get more detailed, and sometimes it does seem like they go towards more of a negative thing. So at first it's like, oh, it's just playing with us, and then it's like it's getting pissed because you're not leaving or doing whatever it wants you to do. And it almost sounds like that's kind of what Article was experiencing. Is it started off as just a little poltergeist, and then it started to get more physical. And when he described this figure as shrouded in shadow with a cane and then with a hat, I'm like, well, that kind of sounds like Ralph the Ghost, but it also sounds like the Hat Man. The Hat Man. And as John was asking about that too, definitely one of the classifications of shadow figures is the Hat Man, because I've never heard anybody describe the Hat Man with any kind of definitive detail. So it's almost like he always just shows up as a shadow, but the reason you can tell it's the Hat Man is because he's wearing this hat that basically looks like a fedora.
Right.
Hey, just that Coochie man, if you want to hit me up on Facebook, mate, I'll give you some tips to try and help you through. I don't know if you want me to say them on here or not, but I can definitely give you some tips to make you feel a lot more settled and probably take away some of that aggression that's happening towards you.
Well, I don't know if Mark would be comfortable with me saying his full name so that they know who he is, but as you saw what his username is there, Panda, I didn't see the last, I think it's some numbers. Maybe you'd be able to contact him.
So I wanted to share with you guys, by the way, I just created a stereo account just so that I could go ahead and comment on here without having to steal Jessica's phone because I kept using hers and her emoji talks then. But okay, so when we went to Malvern, I was like super, super nervous, and it was really weird. Like when we first walked in there, it was like this super heavy, like, I don't know, like weird energy. It kind of like felt like all of a sudden I weighed like I don't know, like 100 pounds was like on me or something. It was really weird. And I'd never felt anything like that before. And I've had other weird experiences, like when I was younger, but as I've gotten older, I've been able to kind of like shut things off and not have things happen. So it really threw me through a loop that like I all of a sudden felt these things. And then like as we walked.
Kelly, you and Arena need to talk to each other because I think you both that you're both sensitives for sure.
Yeah, that explained a lot in terms of like what I was picking up from her. I thought that, I mean, I definitely felt her discomfort. But yeah, I mean, I felt that in Malvern also. And it's one of those things where I will feel different pressures and heaviness and stuff, but at the same time, and I don't know if maybe I'm less sensitive, but I haven't had the fear. Now, when I went to leave to use the restroom there and I couldn't find the group and I was going up into that attic by myself and stuff looking for you guys, I was a little bit more apprehensive, most definitely. But I don't know if I just processed the heaviness differently than other people. I don't feel like it's an evilness or pushing me back or anything like that. It's just there's a little bit of oppression there, and I just kind of say, and this is very unusual for me because I don't want to bother anyone or overstep bounds typically, and I think you know that about me, Diane, and most people that know me really well know that about me for sure. But I just kind of go, okay, well, I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm coming through here anyway. And, I'm going to be respectful. I respect you. You respect me. And it is what it is because I'm a living person. And maybe that's the wrong attitude to have. I don't know, but again, I've yet to have anything scary happen. And not anything like negative, not anything negative to the point where I'm like, I'm not going back there. I refuse to go back in that building. And we've gone into some pretty dang haunted locations.
Well, my memory, is not the greatest, but am I remembering right that Arena would not go with us? There was like a darkened hallway at Malvern Manor where there was a person who had yes, there was usually people would see a shadow figure down at the end of the hall, and it would rush people. That's right. And Arena would not go down there, but you, I, and Jessica all went down to this doorway where he usually would start his run from.
And I was definitely nervous. I was apprehensive, but I wouldn't say that I was scared. And before we even started down that hallway, my overall feeling was that's residual. Whatever it is, it keeps doing the same thing over and over and over. So I don't even know if whatever it was intelligent, but that I kind of did not want to see that happen, but I didn't feel threatened by it, shall I say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys said that, like, I wasn't necessarily, like, scared at first, because, like, I wasn't. Like, it was more like the initial, like, whoa, was there some sort of figure there? But yeah, I definitely feel more, like, empathic about everything. But also, it's interesting, because that building, this isn't the first time, and I'm not the only person in the building that has seen things, just because I think it just, because of what the building is, there's a lot of energy, and sometimes a lot of sad, dark energy, and you can definitely pick up that a lot of the times. Especially, yeah, if you're there late, it definitely, you can feel it a lot more.
I mean, that place has got to be alive with all kinds of energy. Just even if you didn't have people who necessarily would be passing away there, just the energy that they're bringing in, because this is an outpatient facility, they're going to have a lot of negative emotion coming in there.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of people involved at that facility have passed away, but yeah, it's definitely a lot of emotion, and I think that always feeds into things. I don't think that energy necessarily dissipates.
Law, it sounds like.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that was.
Y'all, hi. This is Sandra. I left a message for y'all just a minute ago. I'm sorry, I'm new to this and I'm sounding ignorant. So just wanted to say hi and pardon my etiquette.
That's fine. Hi. No, we just didn't know what to make of it, but that's okay. Everybody's learning on this app. Obviously, we had some issues when we first started today. I got kicked off to talking to some random guy.
Sandra has a Southern accent. I thought that they didn't have any issues with etiquette when it comes to the South.
Oh, come on. We're all human.
So a couple points to touch on. One, when he hid the toilet paper, it was the full rolls. Two, it happened during the 90s. That was the time that I was a kid. So unfortunately, it wasn't during COVID, and toilet paper wasn't such a commodity at that point. Thirdly, that's the only time that Ralph, or at least what I would assume would be Ralph, got physical. And it seemed odd that he said bring him back, as though he knew that Wyatt wasn't me. And then lastly, that incident was about a year ago, and since then we've had plenty of happy Ralph experiences. It's the only time a manifestation and a physical interaction happened.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask, is if Article had other experiences with Ralph or his family did after that point, because that kind of crossed my mind in terms of, the Ralph entity knew that Wyatt was not Article and was saying, hey, bring him back, jump back in. I want to interact with Article.
I kind of wondered the same thing. I was like, I wonder if he's saying, I don't know where Article is gone, but you're not him, so bring him back. So rather than thinking it being a negative experience, it almost sounds like he was being more protective.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, obviously we didn't experience it, but that's where my head went.
So the hallway there, I remember the hallway wasn't scaring me as much as it was like I was exhausted. Like I just felt worn out. But I will say the attic part, I remember I went up there the one time, and then I think you guys went back up there or something, and I was like, I'm not going back up there. The attic is where I definitely felt something else, something different. Like the rest of the place felt like like a draining energy, like sad and like oppressive, like Kelly was saying. But the attic was where I felt definitely something different. It was very, very different. And from like my experience as a kid and the things that I've seen and felt, I'm not into like messing with things too much, just because I'm still scared of them. And
I completely agree with her statement in terms of the energy within Malvern. I definitely had a much. Go ahead.
Do you want to describe what the attic was like? There was one corner of it that had all these like liquor bottles and cigarettes and things like that, because there was more negative, I guess you could kind of say, energy up there. Guy that was not.
It was like an offering, basically.
Yeah. And people were leaving that kind of
energy
stuff to whoever.
Right, to the energy that was up there. And they were hearing a bunch of noises up there. I know there was that crawl space where Josh, right? Josh said that he had gone back in there to see if there was any kind of like animal excrement or signs of animal activity and things of that nature. And I think he said that he didn't find anything like that. I definitely, I did not feel comfortable there. I definitely was more anxious. Especially so when I went looking for you guys up there, because I was thinking, I was calling for you guys and you couldn't hear me. And I was thinking, well, maybe the sound's getting absorbed, so I just need to go up there and see if they're up there. But I didn't stay up there. And I see what she's saying. I recall that feeling. Obviously it wanes with time, I guess. I would still go back there. I would not want to spend the night there. But, there was a lot of emotional distress, I feel like, there. But again, I didn't feel fearful. I felt anxious. Like I'd rather not be here, but I didn't feel fearful.
Well, I don't know about Jessica, but as I always say, I'm as sensitive as a rock. Even though I know Whitney last show was like, well, yeah, you kind of do have that kind of rock energy because you're very grounded. But she's like, no, you're sensitive too.
Yeah,
but I didn't
you
feel
are.
anything in Malvern. I wouldn't want to spend the night there because it just seems like a dirty place.
Oh, jeez.
Girl, I'm from East Texas, and we definitely have issues with etiquette occasionally when it comes to the internet. I just joined this for y'all because I don't follow anybody else on here, but I love y'all. Just wanted to follow y'all. And I was going to tell y'all on the toilet paper, I said maybe Ralph was stacking up for the future because he knew what was coming.
See, we don't know. Ghosts can maybe know the future, and he saw it coming, and he's like, I am not going to be without TP.
Well, and maybe he didn't even need it for himself. He was storing it for them. You never know. He could have, like,
Kelly,
brought it around for them.
It's fine to put it in the freezer, but don't put it under the dirt or in the chicken coop, because I ain't using it after that.
Honey, if we had none, you never know.
I do remember at the beginning of COVID with the lockdowns and stuff, we were getting to a point of desperation where I might have, been like, okay, well, if we brush the outer edges off, I could use it.
Well, we were one of those people that didn't go out and buy a bunch, and then it got to the point where you couldn't find it, and so there was a little bit of a panic mode where I bought some extra paper napkins and stuff because we just didn't know. And worst case scenario, we've got washcloths and a high temperature washing machine. As horrible as that sounds, we are really like running away from that whole shadow figure conversation.
Yeah, I think Ralph didn't know, or he knew it wasn't you, and he's like, yeah, bring him back. Freaking, no, I don't want you. You're not who I know, kind of thing.
So it sounds like Julie is agreeing that Wyatt was like, I want Article back.
Well, no, not Wyatt. Ralph wanted Article back, and he was telling Wyatt to go.
Yes.
But yeah, I personally think it makes perfect sense why he would say that to his alter.
I think it's just fun to share. I don't necessarily think that it was maybe like anything paranormal, but more of like a trick of the mind just because I was out in my kitchen listening to you guys. But like, I felt like something was like kind of standing behind me and I was alone in the kitchen. And like, I kind of turned back and I literally saw like a black mass like kind of come from like 4 feet in front of me and pass right through me pretty quickly. But as soon as it like passed through me, I like got that kind of feeling where you get like shivers all the way through you, and like I was startled, but I felt like almost something like passed through me. It was just this weird kind of feeling, and I kind of felt scared but kind of like anxious all at the same time. I don't know, it was funny, interesting how stuff like that works.
It is, and I feel like you have a bird in the background. It sounds like
I was just about to ask, is there a bird?
As a bird person, and I'm sitting here listening to Mia snore, our middle child dog snoring away, which kind of makes me think it's getting close to time. And we can listen to the last few comments and stuff, but I think it's about time to call it because we're both up bright and early tomorrow for work, and the dogs are completely sacked out.
Isn't that weird, though, that I've always wondered what it's like if somebody has a spirit pass through them.
I definitely do. I mean, I've gotten the definite feeling of, something passing by, and typically it's just that weird sensation, like that static electric kind of reaction, and sometimes it's kind of cold. But I've never had anything visually go with that actual physical sensation.
So to this day, I still question whether or not this was a dream or sleep paralysis. It happened shortly after I saw Ralph, like the first time where he winked at me. Again, I was a kid. I still can't distinguish whether or not it's a dream. I think about this often. But I specifically remember opening my eyes and there was a woman with a bun who was dressed in like old style 1800s clothing. And she had a beautiful face, and she said something like, he sees beyond us, or something to that nature. And I heard someone, I couldn't move, but I heard someone say, leave him. And then stepping into my vision was the same figure who I identify as Ralph. And yeah.
That's interesting, because a lot of people, when they have the sleep paralysis, they do have, the old hag, but not a woman with a bun and a beautiful face showing up.
Well, and I'm just wondering if perhaps that could be a relative of his from, that time frame, and just letting him know that, okay, so Ralph is around. He sees beyond what we see. He might be able to give you information going forward. I don't know. But it seemed like there was an acknowledgement there, but I don't know if Ralph really wanted that communication to take place, it seems like.
Yeah.
He basically said, leave him. She said, they had this dialogue where I was young, so my memory is still kind of meh, but like it was just this moment where he was like, leave him, and she said something to the effect of, but something must be done. And this man essentially said, he is under my protection. That I remember clearly, is him saying he is under my protection. And then the next thing I remember, I was waking up in my bed. So I don't know what to make of it, honestly.
That's interesting. It almost makes you think that this spirit Ralph has been with him since he was young.
And perhaps, in terms of what he goes through in life, it was a past relative of the family that was kind of trying to oversee things, but then Ralph is like, I've got this. I'm taking care of him. It's okay. And Ralph is, watching over Article.
I totally agree about the TP, man, which that chick just said about Ralph hoarding the toilet paper. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too, like, oh, I wonder if he did because he knew it was gonna happen, so he was saving them, but then he realized, oh, I'm not gonna need them anytime soon, so I'm just gonna leave them wherever the hell I want to.
Y'all, like I said, I'm from East Texas, so you wouldn't guess this, but I bought a spray bidet attachment, and it is awesome. I hate going anywhere that doesn't have one. It helped save us during this pandemic. So I suggest it to anybody. $70 on Amazon.
So for people who are listening that don't know, because you don't listen to our podcast, I clean houses for a living, and I can't tell you how many of my clients ended up getting bidets that they just attached to their actual toilets during that time.
I mean, I totally agree. It would save us. So maybe we need to look into getting that. Just, for future, you just never know.
You never know.
I mean,
Ralph might be a guardian angel. Well, what the Catholics would call a guardian angel rather than a spirit.
Man. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And for anyone that has had kids and episiotomies, you get the little spray bottle of water. Bidet is essentially the same thing, and it's all good. Sorry, I digress.
I'm thankful to say I have no idea what that would be like.
It just cleans you up easy. So there you go.
I kind of wondered the same thing when I heard Article talking about Ralph being with him through this whole time and how he's protective of him. Is that I kind of in the back of my mind wondered, I wonder if this is more of a guardian angel kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the same.
So I thought I would actually share something paranormal. In the old house we used to live in, which was like built in 1971, we used to have a lot of weird experiences. The weirdest shadow figure that we had go on was one night I woke up, and my husband used to like to have the room super dark. We had blackout curtains, and it was dark. But I looked up at the ceiling fan, and there was this thing crawling across the ceiling that was about the size of a toddler. It looked at me. I did not see a face, but I could see a head sort of thing turn. And it scared the dog out of me. I did not go back to sleep. And I closed my eyes one time, and it wasn't there anymore, but it was the strangest thing. And we had so many odd things happen in that house. My oldest kids used to tell me stuff fell off their shelves all the time.
Let me just say, Kelly, that house was built in a good year. 1971, awesome year. It's going to be 50 this year.
It is, as is someone else. And, maybe we'll have something, a toddler crawling across our ceiling.
No. No. That sounds creepy as hell.
That would be pretty disconcerting, I have to say.
I don't want anything crawling across my ceiling, especially not a toddler-looking thing. because that is not a toddler crawling on the ceiling. It's something else.
You may need the bidet.
Yeah, it would have to be right near the bed. We would need a hose for the bed.
Oh my.
I'm sorry, but if I had a spirit pass through me, I'd be like trying to find some holy water to chug just to be on the safe side.
Oh my word.
Chug something.
I mean,
yeah.
Internal out, I'm sure it probably works as well. I don't know.
Yes, that'd be my conure. He's sitting out of his cage. He gets some time out almost all day, but it's almost bedtime for him too. Yeah, you can probably hear him right now. He constantly wants attention, and he knows that I'm talking about him, and he knows that I'm looking at him, and he's doing a little dance for us. But yeah, thanks for a great show.
I'm thinking it's a green cheek conure. Green cheek, maroon. green cheek, maroon belly, something along those lines.
I thought we were doing good guessing that it was a bird in the background. You're even calling out exactly what kind it is.
Yeah. I mean, I may be totally wrong, but that's what I think.
And then this other time, we had a balloon that was in the kitchen of our house, cross all the way from the kitchen, all the way down the hallway into our bedroom in the middle of the night. No idea why it did it, but we felt like it was a very strange thing that we woke up and heard, the balloon bumping against the ceiling. There was nothing to draw it. The air conditioner was in the hallway, but not in our room as far as to draw it down there. And then my husband also woke up one time and he saw a black fluttery thing in front of his face. So we don't know what was going on, but there was something going on in that house. We did not find that anybody had passed away in that house. There had been some people who passed away from that house that had owned it originally, but not in the house.
Interesting, because that was going to be my first question in terms of where are the AC ducts, because they can blow from quite a distance.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting.
I always wonder when you have activity going on in a location and you haven't had any deaths there. But as we know, I don't necessarily think that spirits are locked into it. Well, first of all, we don't know what a spirit is. And I don't know that they're necessarily always locked into a location. So maybe it was just something passing through.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's possible also.
Girls, not even talk about episiotomies. Freaking no. I will message you in private about where it's like, don't even go there.
Sorry, Julia. Sorry to bring up bad memory.
So this is just a theory. Like I said, I'm 30 years old. I've had a lot of time to think about Ralph and all of the, there's so many more stories I could tell you about Ralph that would line up and make sense to certain situations. And this is my all-around theory. Because when I had that dream or that sleep paralysis, whatever the hell it was, I didn't feel a sense of familiarity towards that woman. As a matter of fact, it felt like a hierarchy between the two. Like she was like, well, something must be done. And he was like, leave him alone. And it seemed like she had to listen to him the way that she was acting. And when she said something to the effect of, he sees beyond us, it makes me wonder if shadow people have an identity, but very few people can see beyond that shroud that they have.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Could be. That's really interesting.
And talking about a hierarchy, Ralph seemed to have upper authority to whoever this woman was, but she also was trying to be authoritative, like, something must be done here.
Right. Like she was checking out the situation, but Ralph was kind of like, I've been here this whole time. I've got it under control. I don't know. I mean, that's really interesting.
And of course, we're not even talking about something that would be very personal for article, but for somebody to end up with DOD, there has to be something going on in his life that was pretty traumatic, I would assume, for him to have developed this. And so I'm wondering if that's why we have these, whatever you want to call them, whatever they are or were, attaching themselves to him in that way, because there is this psychological thing that is happening to him that they're trying to help him with or be protective of or something.
Sure.
And maybe it was because there was an outside trauma.
Yeah, could be. I mean, it definitely sounds like Ralph has that protective quality around him.
Ultimately, I'm happy to have Ralph in my life. And I'm happy that he's still around. I'm happy that he still plays pranks. He absolutely loves dogs, by the way. I've always had a dog in my life, and whenever he's around, I know, because he always pets my dogs. My dogs will start ferociously wagging their tail, and then they'll just sit and look up, like they're looking up at me when, I'm looking at them. And the fur on the back of their head and neck will furl like somebody is running their hand down their neck.
I love
They
that.
absolutely love Ralph.
That is so great, because we know that animals can see on a different level. And so that is great.
Yeah, I love that.
With all of this talking about a spirit passing through us, the only thing I can think of is the line from Ghostbusters, "He slimed me."
Yeah, I'll take a hard pass on that kind of communication if I can avoid it.
Yeah, I don't want to get slimed.
Did y'all ever download that ghost hunting app and play with it? I'm thinking maybe one time y'all said something about it. Well, I was going to share with y'all. Thank goodness we don't live in that house anymore. But when it was first popular, I did download that app. And I used it one time, and I creeped myself out because it showed to be behind me, whatever entity it was. And it said on there, of course, this is the crazy ghost hunting app, but it said it was thousands of years old, and its mood was angry. I took that off my phone pretty quickly and did not want to use that again. So I actually have wondered, because we're in an area where there were a lot of Native Americans, and I've wondered if it could even be some vengeful spirits in that way, because there have been a lot of remains of Caddo Indians found in our area.
Well, here's the thing. We always advise, and I think most people that really get real serious about investigating, you don't want to investigate where you live. You can do things to protect your environment, when you're experiencing things that you feel are paranormal. But overall, I feel like when you open that up, you may be inviting things that you don't necessarily want, especially if you've already had some experiences where you weren't real thrilled with the results. I think it's just a good idea to not investigate where you live, unless you're really open to being really bold in regards to claiming your space. And you're going to say, okay, I'm not threatened by you. I understand, I respect you, but this is my space. So it takes, I think, from what I've seen, what I've read, what I've heard about, you have to be extremely bold in your faith and your experience to just claim it for yourself. This is my house now, you need to stop. But overall, I think if you intentionally investigate your own personal space, that can open it up to more.
I'm trying to remember what the name of the ghost hunting app was. I know when we first were talking about it in the History Goes Bump Spooktacular crew over on Facebook, that I had put it on my phone, and then I think I took it off because we hadn't gone anywhere for a while. So I was like, oh, it's cluttering my phone. So I'd never
Yeah,
used it.
I don't remember the specific name. It was one that the guys that we really respected at the Haunted America conference in Alton, Illinois.
Well, I have Ghost Radar. I have Ghost Radar on my phone, and I still have that on. But it seems like there was something else we talked about that was more like a spirit box.
Yeah, there was another one I think too. But yeah, I'm the same way. It's like, well, too much stuff on my phone.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. History. DID stems from childhood trauma between the ages of 7 and 9. Like there's no other time that you can develop DID except between those ages. And it has to be a highly traumatic experience. Some people with DID will remember what that traumatic experience was. In my case, I do not. What DID is it's your brain's way of protecting you from that trauma. So it'll develop a new person to hold that trauma for you. And it creates an amnesic barrier between you and that memory. So my life is full of little amnesic barriers and blips, especially from my childhood that I just simply don't remember. So yeah, that comes into play a lot in the whole grand scheme of things.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's almost a blessing for people who develop something like that, because you probably don't want to remember whatever caused that kind of trauma, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would go back and forth with it because, I would want to know, but at the same time, you probably don't want to know. So, and it sounds like Ralph is doing his job in terms of protecting you.
That's why me and my boyfriend won't do any investigating at his place. I don't know if you guys saw that video that I tagged you guys in the comments of his cat. That's
I was just
far
going to say
from
of the
the
cat.
only weird thing that's happened there, where he thinks maybe there's something going on. I've heard voices there, like kids saying mommy or something like that, and his daughter's fast asleep. Excuse me, smoker's cough. But yeah, that's why we haven't investigated, because that's where he lives, and he has a daughter, and she's seen like this guy in her TV, so now she won't sleep unless there's a towel over her TV.
Oh wow!
I think you need to move.
Yeah, or boyfriend needs to move. Yeah, I just think overall it's probably not the best thing. Oh, dogs are getting cranky. It's bedtime. They're fussing at each other. I was just going to say, yeah, it's probably a best practice not to investigate where you live.
No, because the thing is, you just don't want to, if you don't have anything in there, you might end up inviting something in that you don't want there.
Exactly.
The app called the Ghost Paranormal Science Toolkit by Jetasoft.
Ghost Paranormal Science Toolkit. I've written that down. We'll have to check that one out.
All right, let's take this last message and then call it a night.
Kelly's falling asleep.
I'm like, we're up an hour past our bedtime.
I wanted to say thank y'all to y'all for hosting this. This is the first time I've got to join you. I listen to y'all all the time, but normally I am teacher tired on Thursdays, and I've got to get to bed. So again, I appreciate it. Love y'all. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Well, it sounds like we're all being teachers.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
Yeah, I just want to end really quick with protection from shadow figures. Say protective prayers to whatever God or whatever you happen to believe in, or angels. Meditations every day to develop your spiritual power. Learn psychic defense to protect from evil spirits. Clean your house to remove negative energies. Crystals, like we mentioned, the black tourmaline to help protect against negativeness.
Yes.
And if the situation gets worse, seek some kind of psychic helps or shamans to help you deal with those problems. And don't mess with occult practices and Ouija boards and things like that might end up bringing stuff into your home. And sometimes if you sprinkle some sea salt around your bed or the corners of the room or your house, this will ward off evil as well.
Absolutely. All great advice.
All right. Well, you guys take care. We will be back on Saturday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk about what is a ghost. And please check out the History Ghost Bump podcast. You can find it anywhere where you listen to podcasts. We also have a website at historyghostbump.com.
And join us on the Facebook page, Spooktacular Crew, if you want to join in with our podcast group.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.